All right, 42 minutes past the hour. It's the world's largest water cooler. Talking sports with that guy right here on CosmicBroadcasting.com. Again, Jamie Hubler coming up in a little less than 20 minutes. Kurt Hansen on the other side of the second hour, getting you ready for the Daytona 500. But first and foremost, of course we're going to be getting into it as far as college hoops is concerned. Yes, folks, the madness is only weeks away, but even then, in the midst of the madness being close, we already got a couple of shakeups here, and I couldn't think of anybody better to get on the phone line to talk about this than the CEO of Hardwood Hoops Central. His name is Stephen Barnard. Stephen, what's going on, man?
Nobody better. That's right. I was kidding. I'm doing good, Len. How are you?
I think you had it right. There's nobody better. I mean, I got a few guys I know I can talk to, but at least I know you're going to bring the goods. That's why I come to you first.
I appreciate it.
What's going on, man? You look at the college basketball polls, and you look at some of the games from last week. Let's start with the top team in the nation, University of Syracuse, losing to, I believe it's, a 6-win Boston College team. What happened there?
Well, anytime you give up 11 three-pointers to a team, you're going to lose. I just, it's that simple. And, at the end of the day, Syracuse, while they've been good defensively, this hasn't been Jim Boeheim's best scoring offensive team. And it really just comes down to them for the X factors. I mean, you look at guys like Rakeem Christmas, you look at other guys, Trevin Cooney, you look at Jeremy Grant, a guy like Jeremy Grant. When you look at even the Duke game, they're going to play again today. But when you look at that Duke game, in that overtime period, Jeremy Grant scored 8 in that overtime period. So for them, it really comes down to the X factors. You know what Tyler Ennis is going to give you. You know what C.J. Fair is going to give you. So at some point, somebody's got to be able to step up and fill that third role and be a go-to guy and get you some buckets, especially inside. So that's where they lack. And their defense is going to be where it's at. But anytime you give up 11 threes to another team, I hate to break it to you, but it's going to be a rough one. Yeah,
that's definitely going to be an ML there. Sticking in the ACC, and it's still kind of weird for me to say Syracuse in the ACC. Let's talk about the other thing that happened this week in regards to what is considered by most the greatest rivalry in all of college basketball, Duke and North Carolina. Duke not looking themselves at the Dean Dome, but on here's the stat that got me. North Carolina is 0-8 against Duke when Duke is ranked in the top 5 and North Carolina is unranked. And I know for sure somebody was stretching like crazy to try to get that stat out there. But if you watch that game, even for as close as it looked, to me, it didn't really look close. North Carolina came out with a statement. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, and to add to your point, that was the first time that North Carolina, being unranked, has beaten a top 5 Duke team, and that just gives you that when you think about how great that rivalry is, when there's still an opportunity to have firsts like that are significant like that, it tells you how deep this rivalry is. So for me, I'm disappointed in the fact that Duke came out and pretty much laid a goose egg. I mean, you're talking about shooting less than 23% from the three. You're talking about shooting less than 60% from the line and shooting 43% from the field. On top of the fact that you only got 3 guys in double figures. Rasheed Suleiman, who was big in that Syracuse game, bringing in the overtime, didn't show up. Other guys just not really giving you what you need. And on top of that, you can look at, for Duke, this is a team that needs more than Jabari Parker to show up. A guy like Rodney Hood, over the last month or so, has been only averaging just over 11 points and shooting 33% from the field. I mean, this guy's a Wooden Watch award winner. So, to me, it's going to have to be those 2 guys really bringing it home, and then a guy like Rasheed Suleiman or Quinn Cook or somebody adding in that extra punch, because this is a team that's offensively capable of going toe to toe with anybody, as they proved with Syracuse. So it really just comes down to consistency. I was reading a tweet from a Duke beat writer after the game, and they said there's a stone wall that basically divides the court from the locker room, and you could hear Coach K yelling in the locker room through the stone wall. So you could clearly tell that, look, Coach K understands, but these guys they just didn't seem to understand. And when it boiled down to it, UNC just made the plays that were necessary in order to get them that win. So it is disappointing, especially when you started to think that Duke could be turning the corner at the right time in the season.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Another note from that game. Jabari Parker, for all well and good that he's been doing over the season, he didn't touch the ball for at least 6 minutes in the second half of that game. So that should tell you what happened, what was going on with that game.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And Duke went scoreless the last 6 minutes. I mean, they went on, that was a microcosm of their season. Just being inconsistent those last 6 minutes and going scoreless. That's how they gave up the game.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. It's another one that literally cracks me up. Duke, North Carolina, the first team to beat the top 4 in the AP since the AP poll has ever come out. We're talking Duke. What was it? Duke, Louisville, Michigan State, and then there was a fourth. Who else did they beat?
Blah blah blah. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I'll get it for you.
Oh yeah, Syracuse. Oh no,
there you go.
Yeah,
I thought you named Syracuse.
I thought I did. Oh well. It's the top. It's the top 4 that they've beaten. I think for me, North Carolina has sent the warning shot to the rest of the ACC and saying, hey, we're not done yet. So you can talk about your Virginias and your Clemsons and your Marylands all you want. The Tar Heels aren't going anywhere as of right now.
Yeah. We'll see about that.
Yeah, it's definitely coming up to tourney time. Stephen Barnhart on the hotline with us. Let's real quick. I want to dive into the Big Ten because we know about Michigan State. We know about Michigan, but Wisconsin took a couple of L's in the beginning, but now they're starting to storm back. How good is this Big Ten conference?
I think it's better than people expect. I mean, I think there's 4 or 5 teams that are tournament worthy. And when you talk about Wisconsin, yeah, they had a tough stretch there in January. Really lost at Indiana, to Michigan, and at Minnesota. But when you figure 2 of those teams are possibly tournament bound, Minnesota's still kind of on the bubble. But those 2 of those losses aren't bad. And then you consider the simple fact that they're a team to me when you look at their ability to score is not great, but they don't give up a whole lot of points either. So they're going to be a team that as long as they can score and stay consistent defensively, they'll be fine. And you look at some of the games that a guy like Frank Kaminsky's had, you've got that kind of firepower from a guy like that. So they'll be fine. Overall, the Big Ten Conference, to me, I think when we were talking on our Beyond the Arc podcast, we were kind of iffy about, what kind of Big Ten team would show, or a Big Ten Conference would show up. But you got to figure, that's a tough act to follow from last year to this year. So I think a lot of people look at that, and to them, if it doesn't match up to that, it's a little bit of a disappointment. But I actually think that this conference actually is better than what they looked like on paper in the preseason.
Absolutely. Switching from some of the big conferences to some of these so-called mid-majors, and a lot of the teams that we pay attention to, but we really don't put on the front pages until the days of the tournament. One of them is actually making a huge statement, at least right now, and that's the Wichita State Shockers. Your opinion: how far can this team go, and are they worthy of a number 1 seed?
They are. I mean, look. I'll put it to you like this. People ask me, well, are they better? Do they deserve to be number 1 in the country over Florida? I say no. But do they at least deserve to be where they are? Yes. All right, when you figure that their points allowed are 61 a game, that's 17th in the country. Their rebounds, they're in the top 25 in rebounding. They're scoring 76 points a game. Yeah, they're playing in a conference that basically has, 4 teams in the above 500 when you're talking about Indiana State, Illinois, and Missouri State, so it's not exactly a tough conference.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they still have to go out and win games. And to say that to be able to stay that self-motivated within the team, because they don't have what Syracuse has in terms of every game. You go and have a tough game one night, 3 days later you're playing another tough game in the ACC. They don't have that. They have to stay motivated. The coaches have to keep them up for every game, and they have to treat every game like, hey, we could lose this game, and I'll be honest, if they lost any of these games that they've won, any of these 28 games that they've won, that's a hard hit for them, because none of those teams, except for, I believe, St. Louis, has been ranked. So, to me, they deserve it because they did what you would expect them to do. But my co-host Brian on our podcast was like, at one point in the season, there were 7 teams left that were undefeated, and he said, rank the teams on based on how you think, who would be the last one standing in terms of being undefeated. And I put Wichita State last just because I thought at some point they would just get bored, lay that one goose egg that one night, and then they would kick it back up a notch. But Brian ended up being right in that, they stayed undefeated. So kudos to them for finding the motivation game in and game out and not listening to all the people, talk about an undefeated season. Are they worthy of a number one seed? Are they the number one overall team in the country? Shut all that out and just go and play basketball. And that's the essence of how you win games, and they've been able to do that. So good for them.
Exactly. Amongst all the teams that are the possible fits for this 68-team bracket, including the four playing games, in your opinion, give me what team out there is in a case of nobody's talking about them right now, but they will become the first and second round of the tournament?
To me, some of the teams that kind of come to mind, the teams I feel better about would be, a team like maybe a UConn, and some of the teams that you're seeing that are kind of making a late push. I mean, the teams that I'm really paying attention to now, just when you look at the top 25, I mean, San Diego State has played a great season. Cincinnati has continued to play well. Kansas seems to be turning on at the right time. And Creighton has been a team that they've got 2 wins now against Villanova, and they've obviously shot up the rankings, and I'm sure by next week will be in the top 10. So that's a team to pay attention to. And St. Louis, I mean, another team that's in a mid-major conference that has managed to play extremely well defensively, and that's been their bread and butter all year. So those are teams I'm really looking at. And then you can't look past teams like Iowa State. Virginia is the second best team in the ACC, which is saying a lot. Yes. And then you never know what to expect out of Louisville because, Louisville, even though they've been a little bit up and down, they've seemed to kind of right the ship a little bit, and they can still make a push in being the defending national champions. So don't disqualify them right away. But I mean, there are certain teams that have shown stretches that I'm impressed with, and I think at some point, if they put it on at the right time, there's a handful of teams I think could easily make a push for an Elite Eight and then possibly even a Final Four.
Last couple of questions for you, Stephen, and I appreciate you coming on. I know we're a couple of months away, but I know for the longest we've been talking about the upcoming NBA draft. I know a lot of people have actually deemed this draft coming up historic. We know about Wiggins, we know about Randall. There are a couple of others that we know about that are going to go within that top 10. Give me your sleeper. Who's going to be the draftee that's going to be the diamond in the rough that no one has spoken of, whom once he gets out on the floor, people are going to realize, hey, this guy's better than we thought.
Yeah, I mean, I look at, we were talking earlier about a guy like Rodney Hood, who's supposed to be, a possible first round draft pick. I look at guys like that. I look at, other guys who have basically done well for themselves. I'm liking. People have talked about JoJo Embiid and then they've kind of dropped off that. Yeah. But I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be really good. I mean, just in terms of just flat out just sleepers. To me, looking at the draft as it is, it to me it's easily one of the deeper drafts that's been out there. And just looking at some of the teams, I mean, you got guys like Sam Decker from Wisconsin. You've got other guys, playing for different teams that are doing well. Guys like Desmond Wells could be a late round draft afterthought. I mean, he's had some issues, but he'll be a guy that's going to come out and could do well. You've got other guys like a guy like Kyle Anderson. When you consider he's a 6'8" point guard with a 7'2" wingspan, I mean, he's a guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything, so he can easily be a sleeper. You're looking at guys like a Jordan McKee for LSU. A 6'8" power forward, 7'1" wingspan. You've got a good number of guys out there. This to me, and the guy we're talking about Kentucky. Everybody focuses on a lot of the guys, but the guy to me that seems like he could be the best at the next level would be James Young. I just like his ability to score, and when you consider how long he is and what kind of skill level he brings to the game, I think he's the one guy that might actually, besides Julius Randle, do extremely well at the next level.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Last question for you. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver is making a major push to raise the age limit for the NBA draft to 20 years old. In your opinion, how does this affect the college game, and how does this affect draftees for the future?
Well, it quote unquote affects it just because guys can't just come out and start making their money right away. You look at, I'll give you two good examples. You look at a guy like Mr. McGarry, who obviously had a great March last year. Everybody said, come out, you be a lottery pick. He decides to stay, gets injured. Okay, then you've got a guy like Nerlens Noel, ends up getting injured, but he's rehabbing with some of the best rehab specialists he can in the country, being in the NBA. He's sitting in designer suits on the sideline, and he's still making his money. So there's two schools of thought. You can either come out early and capitalize on your stock at that particular time, or you can stay. Now, as a college basketball fan and somebody who likes to see guys develop, I would rather see them, have that time to develop, because the last thing you want to really see is a guy sitting on the bench for 2 or 3 years and not knowing exactly what he can bring or seeing in spurts. I'd rather be able to watch him play in March and make some noise, and then when the time's right, make that decision to leave. Because, look, the money's always going to be there. But, I can't tell a family that hasn't had any money, or a kid who is not used to having money, doesn't come from anything, to pass up multi-million dollars. I mean, you and I probably wouldn't do it, and I can't expect another person to do it. So it's to me, you've got the development on one side. I mean, me personally, if I'm a Jabari Parker looking at the class that they're bringing in next year, I'd stay another year. People would think I'm crazy, but you got to think how great that team could possibly be, and he'd still be the number 1 overall pick in 2015. He should be this year too. So I even look at guys like that who could come out, be number 1 overall pick, but look, you could do the same thing next year. So I don't think it hurts guys, but at the same point in time, you have to capitalize on whatever money you can make, because let's just be honest, you only have a short window to make a certain amount of money anyway.
That's a good. That's an excellent point. And just thinking about what you said about Jabari Parker, I thought about John Wall, who is in his third year in the NBA, just now making the All-Star team, and I'm going, this cat would have been a senior at Kentucky. Oh my God, this cat would have been. It would have been over.
And the thing about it is, you look at the Harrison twins, they obviously need another year, so it would have been beneficial for them to sit behind a senior like that.
Yes.
So, it's a shame you don't get to see that, because you don't even understand how much the seniors would benefit from these sophomores and seniors. These sophomores and freshmen. Mm-hmm. They give them that extra kind of push and that motivation, especially in practice, and just giving them those extra pointers. It pays a world of dividends. You even look at the NBA with drafts. You guys got guys like Andre Miller who are constantly being traded around. And, those guys end up being extremely great in the locker room in terms of knowledge they can provide to whomever they're backing up. So it's invaluable to be able to pull from guys who understand the game and understand, how to play their position.
Absolutely. Stephen Barnhart, CEO, Hardwood Hoops Central. Hey, tell them where they can catch you on the Blog Talk show, man.
All right, so blogtalk.com/Beyond the Arc. We have been doing shows over the last couple of weeks, every Thursday from 8 to 9:30, leading up to Selection Sunday. So catch us there. You can also follow me on Twitter at HWHoopCentral, or you can check us out at hardwoodhoopcentral.com.
That's the man. I told you. I go to him for the truth. Stephen Barnhart, Hardwood Hoop Central. Thanks a lot, man.
Hey, have a good one.
You too. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, the resident bettor himself, Jamie Hubler, trendbetting.com, coming back right after the break.